If you're not liking the videos, if you're not commenting down below, and if you're not subscribing to the channel for the 2025 NFC South champion Atlanta Falcons, what are you doing? Obviously, we're Falcons fans. You see us repping our team. If you're friends of ours, it's probably because you're an Atlanta Falcons team, or at least have some respect for us. So what are you doing? Like the video, comment, let us know how smart we are for picking the Atlanta Falcons as division champions, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I brought on two very special guests with me. No offense to my brother who joins me all the time, but two very important figures in Atlanta Falcon history, just to show you how important it is to us. So welcome to the podcast for the first time, Mr. Matt Ryan and Mr. Julio Jones. They both want you to subscribe. They both want you to pull for the Falcons. Give us a rise up in the comments at the very least. It's the least you could do. I don't know how else to tell you. Brian, disappointing 2024 season for the Atlanta Falcons. Talk about the team and how we think they're getting better this year.
Yeah, so like you said, they finished 8-9. Was a bit of a disappointment because they started off red hot. We all had high hopes, and then we had a little bit of an injury at quarterback. And luckily it wasn't his Achilles. His Achilles looked good all year, so I was happy to hear that. But he did have some kind of nagging shoulder injury. And then ultimately got benched and brought in our rookie quarterback who did a wonderful job. And I think he is the quarterback of the future for the Atlanta Falcons. I think we were all puzzled with the pick when he was picked up in the draft, is why we paid this quarterback, a crazy amount of money to come to Atlanta. And then we took a quarterback in the first round of the draft at pick number 8, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. It's just like, what are y'all doing? And then we see what they were doing. So, was it smart? Yeah, looking back now, it was. At the time, none of us knew. But Penix, he's going to be a good quarterback. I think he's going to progress over this year. Hopefully he doesn't, hit that. And I don't even know that you would call it a sophomore slump because he didn't play but like 3 or 4 games last year. So, I don't know if you consider this his sophomore year or just an extension of his rookie year. Hard to say on that one, but we all have high hopes for him. I think they're going to have a really, really good year. And just for a bit of a spoiler, yep, they do win this conference, and they are the number one, beating out all other 3 teams.
Division, but maybe conference as well. That was kind of a bold take by Brian, maybe just a slip up. But you heard it here on White Widow Sports First. Brian thinks that the Falcons are NFC conference champions in 2025. We're going to the Super Bowl, baby. We're not blowing a 28-3 lead this time, I hope. But going back to 2024, even in talking about the draft with Michael Penix Jr., once I had come back down to my senses, Thursday night, I was just as shocked, just as confused as a lot of people. But by the time Friday morning rolled around, I said, think about it. We invested a lot of money in Kirk Cousins. We have a new offensive coordinator who ran more 3 wide receiver sets at a higher percentage than any other coach in the NFL, coming from that Sean McVay scheme in the Rams. And so it was very obvious that we were going to be employing that same scheme. And we needed a quarterback that, if it wasn't going to be Kirk Cousins, we needed somebody that could sit and supply multiple weapons throughout the game. And we really saw that come to fruition. When Kirk Cousins took a step back because of health issues, we had to put Michael Penix out there. And despite playing through injury with Kirk Cousins, despite having to throw out a rookie quarterback in Michael Penix Jr., we still had the 6th best offense in 2024, 350 yards a game. It was a testament to that scheme working and the thought process, the foresight by the front office that might just know a little bit more than the typical fan does. I know that's a little bit of a shocker, and nobody in the comment section of Facebook would ever agree with me, but maybe they know what they're doing in the front office every once in a while. And we were able to right the ship and keep it steady. Now Michael Penix Jr. gets to prepare all offseason as the starter, still taking advantage of the tutelage of Kirk Cousins behind him, despite him might not wanting to be here. He still gets to learn from that veteran. He still gets to be pushed in practice every day. learning these weapons, these receivers, learning the scheme, the ins and outs, progressing as a professional quarterback. And I do think that we have a lot to be optimistic about coming into 2025. But even more so on the offensive side of the ball, maybe we have more to be hopeful about on the defensive side of the ball, because last year, for the first time in a long time, Atlanta was not 30th or 31st or 32nd in defense or even sacks. We were 23rd in total defense, surrendering 345 yards per game. I do not see us giving up that much this year. I think we've seen some big time contributions being added, some investments made on this defensive side of the ball, and maybe we should go ahead and get into that. But talk to me about some of the players that aren't going to be here this year, as far as some departures maybe we saw in free agency.
Yeah, I think that, you know, I guess the saddest one I saw was Jarrett going up to Chicago. You can't help but love this guy. Very productive for Atlanta. I wish him well up in Chicago. That's, like I said, kind of saddens me. Joining him with up in Chicago was his offensive lineman going up to, or the center going up to Chicago as well. Um,
Yeah,
Again,
Drew Dahlman.
yeah, kind of sad. Hate to see him go, but obviously Atlanta thought there needed to be some changes at those positions, and I believe they make them. We'll get into it in a minute. And then safety Richie Grant going over to San Francisco, kind of hurts a little bit, but we wish all three of them well. Um, but getting into what we've added, who do you add? Who do we add? Who's going to make
Yeah,
us great?
well, I did want to touch on Grady Jarrett because, yes, Dahlman and Jarrett both hurt for their respective lines. Grady Jarrett was a former fifth round pick coming out of Clemson. And a lot of people kind of had a shock when he was taken there because they're like, wait a minute, this guy's still on the board. How the heck did he fall to the fifth round? He never played like a fifth rounder, but it's almost like he was destined to be a Falcon. Obviously, the son of a former Falcon and Jesse Tuggle. So obviously, we've loved Grady Jarrett, but the time came for us to move on. Drew Dahlman leaving was purely a money thing. We simply did not have the cap space that a team like Chicago had to be able to throw the contract that he had earned during his time in Atlanta. So obviously we've had to move on from a couple of guys that we would love to still have in Atlanta. But that did not stop us from making some moves in free agency. So Leonard Floyd coming over on a 1-year, $10 million deal. Former Georgia Bulldog comes back to Georgia where he is known for playing at the beginning of his career, joins this pass rush. Obviously, we'll get into the draft in a moment, but Leonard Floyd, for a team that has been starved of sacks for as long as I can remember, you love to see it. It's going to be somebody that the fans love rallying behind, obviously bringing him back home, kind of like a hometown kid. If he can get after the quarterback and get even 8-10 sacks, I mean, I'm not saying he has to lead the league in sacks, but to not only set a good example for our incoming rookies, but also be a part of a rotation that gets after the quarterback and is more productive than what we've seen in recent years. You would love to have that happen. Probably my favorite signing of this free agent period was Divine Diablo coming over from the Las Vegas Raiders. He is a linebacker, got 2 years, $14 million. Obviously, we had some linebackers leaving free agency as well that we didn't talk about, but I think Diablo can stand to be an upgrade over all of them. And then Morgan Fox, he is maybe not a starter, certainly not a Grady Jarrett level player, but coming in on the defensive line, 2 years, $5.5 million. I think he can actually earn up to $8.5 million with incentives coming over from the Chargers. He was somebody that I didn't think the Chargers should have let go. I think they had the money to bring him back. Obviously, we didn't have to pay him a lot of money to get him to join Atlanta's roster. And I think that he can outmatch that contract with his play. I think what he can contribute to the team can exceed what we're paying him for. And that's the kind of moves that you're looking to make. It's a savvy addition, I think. And then as far as a couple of re-signings goes, cornerback Mike Hughes, 3 years, $18 million to come back to the Falcons. You love to see that. Obviously, our defense hasn't been great in recent years, but when you have a good player, you want to keep him in there. You want to build upon your good players, not just let them leave and then try to replace them stuck in neutral. This is a defense that I think can take a big step forward, and bringing back Mike Hughes, playing across from A.J. Terrell. I think it's going to be an improved secondary performance because of how much better our front seven can be this year. So I like that we brought him back. And then Jake Matthews, longtime starter at left tackle. I mean, going back to the Matt Ryan days, going back to the, when we were pushing for a Super Bowl in 2016, I'm pretty sure Jake Matthews is the last standing member from that Super Bowl appearing roster, and he gets a 2-year, $45 million extension. No longer a blindside protector because of the left-handed status of Michael Penix Jr., but still a very important member of this offensive line, anchoring that left tackle spot. I love that we brought him back, and he continues to play football at a pretty high level. So as long as he protects like he does and stonewalls defenders like he often does, I love to have that there. That being said, before we get to the draft, because I know there's going to be some players that we're both excited to talk about there, just as far as the Falcons and maybe not having as much money to spend, but how they spent it, do you think we did a pretty good job in shoring up holes and preparing ourselves for the draft to add talent like we needed to?
Yeah, I think we did. Obviously we talked about having the withdrawals, but I think they did a good job. I like keeping Jake Matthews there. He's a long time Atlanta. Hopefully he'll retire with Atlanta. You don't see that a lot in the NFL anymore where they just stay at one team. So I'm happy to see him get that extension. Uh, you know, does he have another 2 years in him? I hope so, because like you said, he's been there for a minute. So, hopefully his knees and his body will hold up and protect Penix and you know lead us to that conference championship. Like I said earlier, that's what I want. I want to go to the Super Bowl again. I want to see it. I want to win a Super Bowl for the first time. Atlanta deserves it. They need to make it happen.
We might not be the most high energy in your face. There's no Pat McAfee on this podcast. And
No.
I apologize for not being that person for you guys. I've never been that person. I never will be that person. But if you ever wanted me to get close to a Pat McAfee level, let me borrow some terminology from some of my younger friends. This podcast will get litty with a quickness because a Super Bowl win for the Atlanta Falcons, we're going to turn up on this podcast. It's going to be fire. There's going to be lights. There's going to be confetti. We might even have a little bit of the bubbly pouring out. Who knows what's going to happen on this podcast if Atlanta finally wins the Super Bowl. But you're definitely going to want to tune into that video after the fact if it happens. I promise you that. So you might as well go ahead and subscribe now because Brian's already predicting the Super Bowl appearance. And I don't think this team's going to a third Super Bowl and walking away empty-handed. I think this is a trophy-winning season if it goes according to plan. That being said, a couple of these draft picks are going to have to help get us there. And it started with 2 picks in the first round, 15 overall, Jalen Walker, very dangerous, very talented edge rusher coming out of UGA. For all the naysayers that say the Falcons don't take players from their own backyard, they ignore the Georgia pipeline, they ignore the SEC. Here you go. Here's a defensive player in the first round. We're done taking these offensive players with top 10 picks after taking Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson and Michael Penix and Drake London. Here you go. Here is an edge rusher from the heart of the SEC, straight out of the Bulldogs, Jalen Walker. You love to see that. Is that enough for the Falcons to turn their pass rush around? We're not going to have to find out because the Falcons traded their 2026 first-round pick to the Los Angeles Rams to come back into the first round, pick 26. They take James Pierce Jr., another edge rusher that you say we don't take, from an SEC school that you say we ignore, coming out of the University of Tennessee. And guys, I question you. If you don't believe me about how good James Pierce Jr. is as a prospect, go back and look at the mock drafts from this time last year, right before the season started. You probably cannot find a mock draft that did not list James Pierce Jr. in the top 10, in the top 5, if not the top 3. And in most of them, he was number 1 overall. He was viewed as being the blue chip prospect in this draft class. Obviously, some things change over the course of the season. It does not change the caliber of player he is. To get both Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr., both top 10 talents in this draft class, now joining this defense, we're going to be headhunting. It's what you want to see as an Atlanta fan. It's a position that has been oftentimes ignored or tried to be patched with ineffective players. No more, I say. If you're a quarterback playing at NFC South, you better look and figure out where these two guys are on every single play. Leonard Floyd is helping him out. He's telling them what he's seen over the course of his career. It's going to be a trial by fire for these rookies, and I think they're going to relish every single second of it.
Yes.
No second-round pick as a result of that trade up to get back into the first. That's okay. I love what they did with the rest of the draft as well. Round 3 and round 4, our picks there. We take a couple of safeties. Xavier Watts coming out of Notre Dame looks like he could be a day one starter. Obviously, we have a pretty good safety on roster already. Justin Simmons left in free agency. I don't actually think he's signed anywhere yet. But we've got a guy by the name of Jesse Bates, who a lot of people think is the best safety in the league. And Xavier Watts could be playing beside him on Sundays as early as week one. Billy Bowman Jr., another safety coming out of Oklahoma, tackling machine, somebody that could actually convert to linebacker. He is very much like that William Moore style safety, if my Falcons fans are still with me on that. He's somebody that can come down in the box as an enforcer, check tight ends, check running backs. He can be somebody that's very good on special teams as well. Love the pick of adding him in the 4th round. And then going down all the way to the 7th round, Jack Nelson, offensive tackle out of Wisconsin. If you're going to come out of the SEC, if you need to get an offensive lineman, there's not very many places that are better to look than Wisconsin. They always have productive offensive linemen. They always show up pro ready. They contribute in the run and passing games. For a 7th round pick, what you could get, possibly the future heir apparent to a Jake Matthews. You love to take that stab on it. And for the first time ever in this series, I'm even going to talk about some undrafted free agents. Cornerback Kobe Bryant coming out of Kansas and wide receiver Nick Nash coming from San Diego State. Guys should have been drafted probably in the 5th or 6th round, if not a little earlier. Go undrafted. Both agree to come to the Falcons. Both of them could make the week 1 roster, could contribute. Outside of Drake London and Darnell Mooney, we don't have a lot of proven talent wide receiver position. Nick Nash could be a steal. He's somebody that we could see making contributions as early as this year. And Kobe Bryant is like an all SEC level player, maybe even an all American level player. Somebody that I don't even understand why he didn't get drafted. Yes, he's not the biggest corner out there, but plays with a lot of heart, diagnosis plays, dangerous athlete. I am just over the moon with what the Falcons did with the draft this year. Everything that I would have wanted, everything that you could ask for as a fan, with the contribution potential at multiple positions. Brian, are you as in love with this draft class as I am?
Oh, 100%. Like I said, you couldn't have done a better job on the offseason than what Atlanta's done. I think they're going to be dangerous. I said it, and I did get mixed up on division and conference at the beginning, but who knows? They may be up there with Philadelphia. They may be up there with the Commanders. They may be contending this year. All jokes aside, they have improved that much, especially on the defense. I said it in a video earlier this week. Defenses win championships. Well, here you go. Falcons put up, shut up. It's kind of that year, and I think they've put up. They went after what they needed to go after. I think they the Pierce. I can't tell you how high I am on this guy. Now, being a Georgia fan, I hate Tennessee. It's just I think it's something that we all have to say. Um, but this kid is special. I said it before the draft. I said it, during combine time. This kid is going to be nuts. Whoever picks him up is going to be great. And luckily, the Falcons did just that. And I don't understand why he moved. Fell out of 15th. Uh, but I'm glad he did. I'm glad he's in Atlanta, and I can't wait to see what he does on Sunday.
Obviously, it's Dirty Bird Central over here on this podcast, but guys that have been following our podcast since combine times throughout the draft process, when we were talking about players that were standing out during the combine, I mean, James Pierce Jr. was somebody that I mentioned as far as how fluid he looked in the field drills, how well he tested, his 40 time was good. This was somebody that I really wanted at pick 15. The fact that Jalen Walker was still there at 15 when I expected him to be gone at maybe pick 8 or pick 9, obviously I was not mad that we were taking a top 10 talent at edge rusher. And then I was like, man, James Pierce Jr., he just keeps slipping throughout the draft. And then to make that move to come back into the first round to add James Pierce Jr., who I wanted at 15 all along, I mean, I just can't say enough about how excited I am. And it's because of that I actually want to list 2 strengths side by side for Atlanta coming into this year. Obviously, we've got offensive firepower. I've talked about how much we have invested in that with Kyle Pitts in the last year of his deal, with Bijan Robinson being every bit as good as we thought he was going to be when we drafted him. Drake London ascending to be a wide receiver 1 talent in this league. And then, obviously having a quarterback that we are. optimistic and high on as far as being able to pilot this offense with the scheme in place, so on and so forth. But then the improvement that the pass rush could see this year, how much better we could get after quarterbacks, disrupt game plans, shut down the run, get takeaways, fumbles, interceptions, turnover on downs, getting played, getting teams to have to settle for field goals instead of getting touchdowns at will against us. It can mean so much more for an offense that was already 6th last year and has room to grow, which is the scary thought, to become a top 5 unit. If this defense also becomes a top 15 unit purely out of the pass rush that we could generate, yes, Atlanta could be clear cut division winners. They could be conference champions. They could be a Super Bowl level team. And as an Atlanta fan, maybe we're homers. Maybe we got to take the blinders off. But at this stage, if you're not going to be excited for your team, why are you even a fan? This isn't the Cleveland Browns that we're talking about. It's definitely not the New Orleans Saints we're talking about. Those guys suck. I was somewhat nice in their video. This is my video. I'm going to say it. But for us Falcons fans here in this video, certainly hosting the video, but hopefully watching as well, you have to be happy about what Atlanta has done. If there's any concern I have, it's the quarterback position. Kirk Cousins is still lingering. That adage I've brought up before, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. I don't want to see us ping-ponging between the 2. Penix is still unproven. I want him to go out and prove that he is the number 1 guy by far and away, that not only did we not make a mistake in starting him over Penix to end or over Cousins at the end of last season, but it wasn't a mistake to use that 8th overall pick to draft him not long after giving Cousins that big contract that we did. Make everybody forget that we did that, because you just want them to be happy that he's your guy, not for just this season, but hopefully future seasons as well. I want us to know beyond a shadow of a doubt, not looking at New Orleans with Tyler Shuck where they're like, maybe he's okay, not looking at Bryce Young at Carolina and thinking, maybe we have our guy, maybe he's put his ghost in the closet and he's ready to be the guy that we drafted to be 1st overall. Not even looking at Baker Mayfield, where it's like a little bit of a Cinderella story where, okay, has it been the benefit of the offensive coordinator scheme and now, boom, it's pumpkin time and he's going to go back to being Baker Mayfield that he was at Cleveland? I don't think that's the case either. But to have knowledge beyond the shadow of a doubt that we drafted a rookie, he is as good as what we wanted him to be, and his offense can be as dangerous and explosive as we want it to be with an improved defense, that's what you want to see as Atlanta Falcons. So I'm not exactly putting my balls on the table with this one, but it's an 11-6 record prediction for Atlanta, and I think with room to even outplay that a little bit. If it was a 12-13 win team, I'd be very pleasantly surprised. I think that we have enough young contributors that we're going to be relying on this year that maybe it takes them a while to grow into their role. So 11-6, but winning the division, I think is a very good goal for Atlanta to have. And if they exceed that even more, I'm only going to be surprised with each additional win that we get above that. But I think this is our year to win the division. I think we have to win it this year.
Yeah, I think they do win the division hands down. I don't think there's any contest about that, especially with Tampa Bay, uh, you know, losing, key parts. And I don't want to get into it and spoil tomorrow's video. But I'm high on Atlanta. I think they do take that 13 wins this year, maybe 14 wins. I think they're that good. I think the defense is going to make them that good. I think it's so much improved. It's just going to be shocking to a lot of people and a lot of teams. Those edge rushers are going to be dangerous, from Floyd to Walker to Pierce. I mean, where does it stop? You know, and that's probably what all the quarterbacks are going to say is, when does it quit? Well, that's when the game's over and Atlanta's won. So yeah, I like them at 13, 14 wins. And if you've been following along with this series, I don't say that about every team. I think there's only been 1 or 2 that's been that high for me. So yeah, Atlanta is my team, but I still think they're that good. Even if they were not my team, I think they're that good.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a potential outcome. I think Atlanta has the potential to be one of the top offenses in the league. Certainly, they have the potential to have one of the most improved defenses in the league. And if that perfect storm comes together, Atlanta could surprise a lot of teams this year, especially if they hit the ground running. They take advantage of some early matchups, if they catch some teams while they're down, they can certainly win 13 or 14 games because the talent is in place. I think health is going to be the big thing for Atlanta, like it is for most teams. Any team is an injury or two away from having their season derailed. But if Atlanta can stay healthy, if our draft picks and our acquisitions over the course of the offseason pan out the way that they were paid to, then absolutely this could be a very good team, and we will love to celebrate every single win that we get. And with those wins comes fantasy success. Obviously, the offensive stats turn into points when you check that ESPN or that Sleeper app. And so there's a couple of Falcons that I would love to have first and second round picks, even marquee talent for Atlanta. I'm talking about Bijan Robinson. I'm talking about Drake London. And the more I think about it, if you really, really put my face to the ceiling fan like you used to do when I was a kid, really torture me into saying it, I'm willing to get hurt again. And if I don't walk away with a Brock Bowers, if I don't walk away with a Trey McBride, I might just be in on Kyle Pitts one more time.
See, I'm not. Pitts would not be my guy. London, yeah, 100%. If Bijan Robinson's not your first round pick, I'm sorry about your luck. Better luck next year. But the one you didn't bring up is Darnell Mooney. I had him on my fantasy last year. Wasn't mad about it. I mean, he's still very productive. He's a good wide receiver. Is he wide receiver number one? No, but is he a deep ball threat? Yeah, he is. Does he catch the ball well? Yes, he does. He's going to score touchdowns for you. He's not a bad pickup, especially if you can get him in the later rounds. So
yeah, absolutely. If he continues to put up like he did last year, he's going to be a very productive part of a good offense. So absolutely, he's somebody that you can add later rounds. And we talked about this in one of last week's videos. A lot of times when we're bringing up these names, we are talking about starting lineup players. Moody's probably not somebody that I want in my starting lineup outside of very big like bye weeks, very big injury weeks, so on and so forth. But if we can get through a season where Mooney as our wide receiver 2 is putting up pace with some of the other big wide receiver 2s like Devontae Smith and T. Higgins, we're doing something right. This is a top level offense like what we want to see in Atlanta this year. So absolutely, I'd be happy with either of those guys.
Yep. All right, guys. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of our Falcons video. We are very high on the Falcons. We hope that they do very well this year. So well that you hit that like and subscribe button because they make us look so good. So, but we will see you in tomorrow's video where we talk about this year's champion, or lack thereof. We won't go there. Our Tampa Bay Bucks. So again, that'll do it, and